I just want to start off by saying, Texas Chainsaw Massacre has no chill.
Here are some cute kittens. Please like and subscribe so my master doesn't beat me again.
I hope you lot enjoyed my attempt at a southern drawl there. I got relatives in Texas, I can attempt it. Don't worry, I will be merciful. I will only do it at points in the video. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a grindhouse film, if you will, coming out in 1974, where a 14-year-old version of my father went to go see it without the knowledge of his parents, and yes, he was underage. Apparently he was so scared he went out running out of the cinema before he could finish seeing it. Whilst considered tame by some in the 2020s, Tobe Hooper's 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre really captured the public imagination at the time and went on to spark a truly massive franchise. In the year 2023, a video game publisher known as Gun created a game based on the first motion picture in the franchise. So, I personally love the video game. Whether or not it's dying is not the topic of this video, but I'm going to talk about the production behind the first film and then the video game, the asymmetrical horror game that was based on it that came out in 2023. So sit back, get a bucket of your favorite blood, and enjoy. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what people will call in the biz an independent motion picture. Horror is often a genre popular with new filmmakers because it's inexpensive, relatively speaking, and doesn't require things like those pesky big name actors. As a person who has been in low-budget horror films myself, I should know. From first-hand experience working on these feature films, I can tell you they are incredibly stressful and usually quite disorganized. Things such as not paying actors, directors having non-existent or incompetent crew, or flaky film locations, that type of BS. It all is a part of the deal when working on someone's passion project. I mean, film. Tobe Hooper was born in Austin, Texas on January 25th, 1943, and began making films at the age of 9 with his father's 8mm camera. As an adult, Tobe Hooper worked as a college professor and documentary cameraman until he got his big break into the wonderful world of film and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The script takes inspiration from two killers, one particularly famous. Just a definition real quick. A serial killer is an individual who kills 3 or more people. Therefore, Ed Gein does not qualify as a serial killer. Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield, is often cited as the biggest influence behind the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In fact, Gein served as an inspiration for several other notorious silver screen psychopaths, including Psycho's Norman Bates and The Silence of the Lambs' Buffalo Bill. Gein, unlike Bubba Slaughter, is not a serial killer. He only killed 2 people. His modus operandi was digging up corpses and turning them into furniture. It beats IKEA, I guess. That is the main inspiration Gein has had on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was his unique talent for human upholstery. How civilized. According to an interview with Texas Monthly, co-screenwriter Kim Henkel stated that while Ed Gein served as a major source of inspiration for the horror film, there was another infamous serial killer who helped influence the writing of Leatherface, Elmer Wayne Henley.
Henley was an accomplice to one of America's most brutal serial killers, the Candyman, aka Dean Cole, who he met when he was approximately 15 years of age. The teen had grown up with an abusive father, and even though his mother had taken away him and his siblings by the age of 14, the trauma stayed with him. The Candyman took full advantage of the boy's troubled past and became a sort of depraved mentor to him.
I needed Dean's approval, Henley later said of Cole. I wanted also to feel like I was man enough to deal with my father. Eventually, Cole began paying Henley to bring him victims, teenage boys whom Cole would essay and murder. Cole offered Henley $200 for every boy he brought to him, and possibly more if they were good-looking. Charming. Kim Henkel also stated, I saw some news report where Elmer Wayne was identifying bodies and the locations, and he was this little skinny old 17-year-old, and he kind of puffed out his chest and said, I did these crimes, and I'm going to stand up and take it like a man. Well, that struck me as interesting, that he had this conventional morality at this point. He wanted it known that now that he was caught, he would do the right thing. So this kind of moral schizophrenia is something I try to build into the characters.
I don't much enjoy this. Some things just gotta be done.
Liar!
Whilst the cannibal hillbilly trope is well established at present day, back in the 1970s they didn't have the pop culture framework to bounce off of. Apparently one of the biggest inspirations for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came from a tedious shopping trip. Dig the scene. It's late 1972. Crying children everywhere. Surly adults trying to get their last bit of Christmas shopping. Karens abusing ethnic minorities. Old people who can't navigate a shopping mall. Horrible. Toby Hooper found himself by a display of chainsaws, as you do, and he thought to himself, I know a way of getting through that crowd really quickly. The real life inspiration doesn't end there. Along his travels, Toby Hooper met a doctor. According to this doctor, whilst he was a pre-med student, he went into the morgue, skinned a cadaver and made a mask for Halloween. He must be a riot at dinner parties. This helped to flesh out the character of Bubba Slaughter even further. Not Bubba Sawyer. Bubba Slaughter is the original name of the character, even if it's not mentioned in the first film. If you pay close attention in the very first film, when the young kids are at the gas station, there is a sign that says W.E. Slaughter Barbecue. How amusing. This is a reference to the family's surname. Slaughter. Or slaughter. I'll slaughter you. It's theorized by some fans that the initials W.E. were meant to stand for the original name of Drayton Slaughter in the film, aka the cook. You can still visit the location of the gas station and even get food and souvenirs there. There's even a hotel. I intend to go at some point.
The hitchhiker, the older brother at the gas station, the girl escaping twice, the dinner sequence, people out in the country out of gas. Just like that, the bare bones of the story was coming together.
Bill Parsley, a local Austin politician, worked with Kim Henkel and Toby Hooper to acquire capital for the film. With the donation of various acquaintances, the help of Bill Parsley, and a very big investment from the head of the Texas Film Commission, they had $100,000 to play with to make this film. Not bad for an independent filmmaker with only one directorial credit under their belt.
Kim and Toby started a company together, Vortex, and agreed with their distributor to take half the earnings of the film. They did not, however, inform cast and crew they owned half the profits. This will be relevant later. Kim and Toby allegedly began writing the script in early 1973 with a quick turnaround in principal photography starting in July later that year. Now with the funding in tow, it was time to find the actors for the film. Marilyn Burns, a 21-year-old drama student, was working on the Texas Film Commission at the time. Nobody is quite sure who brought Burns to the attention of a local politician turned film producer, Bill Parsley. She was known to several people in the production, including Hooper. Parsley told Burns that he owned half of a little horror movie that was being made and suggested that he wanted her to star in it. When she finally went in to try out for Hooper, Henkel recalls that she got the part of Sally Hardesty, the well-endowed blonde destined to be the only survivor, almost immediately. Final girl, as it were. Toby always liked busty women, he recalls, and Marilyn is a busty woman, and well, he was enchanted. Apparently so is Bill Parsley. When he had Robert Kuhn, a trial lawyer who was investing in the film, draw up papers for the company investing in the movie, he named it MAB Incorporated. A lot of people believe the MAB stood for Marilyn A. Burns. Charming. Wow, good to know male filmmakers were just as classy then as they are now. What is it with white guys brutally murdering and terrorizing beautiful women in their horror movies? Remember, ladies, if you want to make it in showbiz, just make sure you're young and hot to titillate the cavemen producing the films that you audition for. The rest of the cast was assembled from local universities, community theatre groups, and friends. Terry McKinn, a popular actress at St. Edward's University, starred in The Rainmaker each night. During the day, on set, she worked as Pam, the fearful astrology-obsessed hippie, immortalized when she was impaled on a meat hook. University Texas Austin drama student William Vale played her strong jock-type boyfriend, Kurt. He would later go on to become a set decorator and work on films such as The Poltergeist as an actor. The most notorious, annoying, and scene-stealing role went to Paul Partain.
As Franklin, the whiny wheel-bound chair brother of Sally, Partain was obnoxiously brilliant. He later said it was a well-written role.
It had been promised to someone else, but I had just finished a small role in Love and Molly as the brother of Susan Sarandon, and I read 2 or 3 times, and finally Toby and Kim said, well, if he's good enough for Sidney Lumet, he's good enough for us. Partain, who did a stint at the University Texas Austin Drama School, threw himself into the role with such method enthusiasm the rest of the cast ended up despising him. He later recalled, I was a young, inexperienced actor who didn't realize that it wasn't like theatre. You didn't have to stay in character all the time. When I first read the part, I could see that nobody wanted this guy to be there. It just hit me that he was whiny.
His constant demand for attention, his high-pitched screams for Sally, and his anger at everyone else for being ambulatory made him one of the most hated pieces of cannon fodder in slasher film history. In a trope that would be echoed throughout the ages, he would become one of those protagonists that you would love to hate and enjoy watch being eviscerated.
Ed Neal, not to be mistaken with national treasure Ed O'Neill.
Al, let's have sex.
No pig.
Was perfect casting for the hitchhiker. Eddie was on his way back from a drama class where he allegedly had been drinking for a drunkard role. A fellow classmate asked if he was interested in trying out for a movie and decided to audition. "Can you be weird?" Hooper had asked him. A friend of Neil's popped up. "He's always weird." Neil had a young nephew who was neurodivergent and behaved eccentrically. He used his nephew's mannerisms and speech patterns as a template for his performance. He consciously imitated his nephew. Quote, "Certifiable paranoid schizophrenic. All he does is wander around the country." Channeling his nephew worked, and he was able to bag the role. Between his dirty and torn green t-shirt, a filthy animal pouch around his neck, sleek greasy hair, and his unsettling twitchy movements, he cuts quite the hillbilly villain. I'm pretty sure this dude is the reason why your parents tell you not to pick up strangers on the side of the road.
Gunnar Hansen was a 6'4" man born in Iceland but raised in Austin by his mother.
Whilst working on a small-town production of Mice and Men, he was talking to a friend who informed him that there was a horror movie being made in town, and he'd be
great for the killer, but they already cast it. 2 weeks later, the same guy calls and says, "The guy who is hired as the killer is holed up drunk in a motel and won't come out. There's a lot of bad karma surrounding this movie and I'm quitting." He called Bobby Burns and the rest is history. Right place, right time, right person. Finally, for reasons no one remembers, Toby was required to hire at least one member of the Screen Actors Guild. Yes, that Screen Actors Guild. Lucky for them, they stumbled upon the highly talented Jim Sado, who plays perhaps the most complex character in the film, a man on the edge of insanity, trying to exercise control over his two clearly insaner younger brothers. I love how he comes across as a benign dude. There is a slight hint of country bumpkin about him, but he's harmless, right?
Right? Wrong.
He goes from a 5 to 11, and honestly, I think he's easily the most menacing member of this cast with just his facial expressions alone. No makeup or mask required for this SAG member. He worked successfully for decades in a variety of roles in entertainment before meeting Tobe Hooper on the long-forgotten Texas film, The Windsplitter.
It was a hippie biker movie. Toby acted in it. He was a roughneck. I was the lead's father. I didn't see Toby again until he calls me and says he needs an SAG actor. He has to pay a union scale to one actor and 1 or 2 union technicians. Later on they asked me if I'd like to take a little of my money and shares in the movie. I told him, no thank you. I'll just take the cash. Smart man.
One of the film's greatest strengths is its realism, thanks in part to the brutal conditions that the cast and crew were subjected to whilst on set. Actors had to recycle clothes because they were worried if they would wash them, it would cause the colours to fade and thus affect the continuity of the film. Basically, the film didn't have enough money and they could only really afford one costume per actor. Gunnar Hansen had it particularly bad because he was wearing a mask, and actors and crew alike eventually started to avoid him because of the smell. To further add to the misery, art director Bob Burns actually used real animal carcasses and rotting meat to decorate the slaughter household. They even used a real human skeleton, bits and bobs of other dead animals, including an armadillo. The most notorious scene in the film, the infamous dinner scene, took a whopping 27 hours of consecutive filming to complete. They even used formaldehyde in the sausages to help preserve them. On the other hand, production manager Ronald Bosman, who would later go on to win an Academy Award as the producer of the 1991 film The Silence of the Lambs, called the scene a living nightmare. But the marathon session might have actually paid off. He later added, it had its own crazy dynamic, which made it better. Perhaps in this scenario, the ends justify the means. Salaries ranged from $50 to $125 for the entire shoot, plus another $125 in deferred payments, plus more percentages of the film's profits. As stated before, many of the cast and crew accepted deferred payments. Unfortunately for them, Mr. Hooper wasn't very good at the business side of filmmaking and got screwed over by the distributor. He also wasn't exactly honest with everyone with how much of the film he actually owned. When the film started, he also wasn't completely honest about how much of the film he actually owned. So, despite the film being a smash hit, and all the hard work and all the hours they put in, not a lot of people received the payment that they were entitled to, which is sadly all too common within the film industry.
So, the production of this now revered classic was a complete shit show, but this low-budget, hillbilly cannibal parable went on to spawn a serious money-making franchise, even if most of the original creatives didn't share in this success. So, we fast forward to the present and Gun Interactive, a video game studio, jumps on the bandwagon. Lucky us. They are also well known for bringing another horror intellectual property to life in the form of another asymmetrical horror game, Friday the 13th, which I'll cover in another video.
For those not in the know, an asymmetrical multiplayer game is a type of multiplayer game where different players have different roles and capabilities within the same game mode. Unlike most multiplayer games where all the players have similar roles, similar capabilities, and similar objectives. Think free-for-all in Halo. Where it's a free-for-all, everyone has access to the same weapons and the same characters, and it's basically a winner of last twat standing. In an asymmetrical horror game, typically, one player plays the baddie, their objective is to twat the survivors, and the survivors, their job is to get the hell out of Dodge. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre the game, however, 3 players take on the role of killer, whilst the 4 other players take on the role of survivor, creating an interesting and nefarious twist on the game genre, which fosters communication and teamwork.
The killers all belong to the Slaughter family, and at the time of writing include Bubba, the hitchhiker, the cook, Johnny, Sissy, Nancy, and this mother lover, Hans. On the survivor roster we have Anna and Maria Flores, the latter being the catalyst for the whole plot of this game, Sonny, Connie, Jules, Leland, and Virginia. What's the basic synopsis of this game, though? The game takes place in Newt, Muerto County in Texas, a fictional location. Fun fact, Muerto means dead in Spanish. Chilling. Maria decided to go on a photography tour outside of Austin in 1973 around Texas. She was kidnapped by Johnny, who seems to have a penchant for pretty young women and making a nuisance of himself to his fellow serial killers.
How much of a nuisance? Well, the reason that pretty boy Johnny has a massive scar on his left shoulder is because of a botched murder in Pflugerville, Texas, 1972. After breaking into a young woman's house and strangling her to death, he was startled by her 2 roommates who were sleeping nearby. They stabbed Johnny in the shoulder before he could flee the scene. There's a radio broadcast on the game that mentions the ongoing investigation. There's also a Pflugerville sticker on the Memento chainsaw skin. He's a liability, and frankly this is reflected by the dialogue of his family members in-game.
Always messing with those doggone girls! Why can't you listen to me?
Anyways, Maria was sending back pictures to her sister this whole time, and suddenly she vanishes. Here's a clipping from the game. Police are stumped, but in typical horror movie fashion, are completely useless, and her disappearance goes unsolved. A cab. Anna Flores, the sister, says F the police, good lass, and decides to go look for her sister herself. She summons a gaggle of plucky young meddling adults, they pack themselves into a van, and they go on a quest to go looking for her sister. Well, they find her, just not in the circumstances they were hoping for. Again, for those in the back, the basic premise of the game is you have 3
Unaliver
and 4 survivors running around one of the trailer trash maps. The survivors are trying to get out of Dodge, they're
Unaliver
trying to stop them. On each map, there are several objectives that the survivors can push in order to escape off the map. On each map, there's a fuse box that opens the basement, a generator electrifying one exit, a car battery electrifying another exit, and a pressure valve that opens a gate. Certain maps contain additional exits where the survivor has to unlock a lot of doors to get the hell out of Dodge.
Leatherface and the survivors always spawn in the basement. The members of the family, however, are scattered around the property. It is their job to place traps, padlocks, and other obstacles that'll make it more difficult for the survivors when they get topside. Whilst it's more safe for the survivors in the basement, and it's worth noting that any survivor in the basement with a reasonable amount of experience shouldn't really be killed in the basement, all the objectives are upstairs, so they either gotta go upstairs or the clock runs out.
Survivors can grab medicine for healing? Why does the family leave this stuff lying around? Craft stun weapons from bone piles? Again, why family? Use barricades and hidey holes to evade the family? Okay, seriously, why do these people have all this crap on their property? It seems counterintuitive to have massive, ugly cowhide barbed wire tables in the middle of your walkways. There's a lot of things that the family do in-game that seem counterintuitive. But I digress. Although effective communication and teamwork is the best way of escaping quick and unscathed, it's a forgiving playstyle in solo queue. If you're really good and really lucky, you can still escape solo, even if the other 3 survivors are a bunch of donuts. And they often are. Family, on the other hand, is a different playstyle altogether. As I stated before, their job is to stop survivors from pushing objectives and escaping the map. There is also a fun little addition to the game, the grandpa mechanic. During the course of the game, you collect blood by attacking victims or dredging them from the dinner buckets scattered around the property. Grandpa effectively operates as a form of sonar, and survivors who are currently moving when he emits his sonic yell are highlighted in yellow for the family members to see. Grandpa has 5 levels which can be upgraded with more blood, and when he unlocks his final form, he is able to detect survivors anywhere on the property, whether they are moving or not. To nerf this mechanic, victims are able to stab Grandpa with their bone shanks and take his level down a few pegs. This, of course, is a risky tactic, as victims are highlighted to the family whenever they are within a certain radius of Grandpa. I'm a family main, never actually played victim in this game, and I'm not going to start now. That being said, I will dispense my uneducated and unsolicited advice on how to play a cannibal hillbilly serial killer in this game. I'm not a professional player, I'm not a journalist, I'm not a gaming expert, I'm just some dude who's dumped too many hours in this dumb and violent game. The first thing that a prospective family player needs to get out of their head is that they are playing an offensive game. Many like to buy into the power fantasy that they are a big, strong, unstoppable killer. but within the framework of an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, this is simply not true. You're playing against fellow humans, not bots, and developers are obligated to make a somewhat balanced game to make the experience enjoyable and not upset either side too much. Particularly in this game, close encounters, barricades, and hidey holes are designed to make the killers less lethal and give the survivors more of a fighting chance. So yeah, you are unlikely to take out a victim in 1 or 2 swings like a baddie in a movie. That doesn't mean you can't give them hell though. Now that we understand that you are not the powerful, skulking killer of your imagination, but in fact a ragged-looking redneck armed with a broom handle and a bad attitude, we can talk about sound tactics and gameplay that will bolster the family's chances of winning. If the family is patrolling, trapping properly, communicating, and using teamwork, victims really shouldn't be escaping, even during a long match.
Unless, of course, it's a group of 4 solid level 99 victims with their black shirts and their whole being in their existence is to bully and grief and terrorize killers.
Anyways, the game progresses naturally as victims push objectives. If they don't, wait for them. They'll bleed out. Eventually, killers can wait out the clock. Victims can't, which is to our advantage. I've seen more long games lost with killers losing patience and chasing in the basement. Meanwhile, the survivors communicate and use this chance to push the unguarded objective. Playing killer, in my honest opinion, is not a race. I play with my main job stopping them from pushing objectives. Killing them is my secondary job, and usually happens during the course of fulfilling my primary job. If I realize a chase is going nowhere and they are deliberately baiting me, I stop chasing and go back to protecting escape objectives. In my experience, family always lose due to bad teamwork, not talking to each other, and not protecting objectives.
Obviously, sometimes things are down to luck. Sometimes the other team just whoops your ass. However, a well-coordinated killer team with an actual plan, actual communication, knowledge of the map and its objectives, it really should be cake. But, you know, you're not really gonna get that with randos, but oh well. I guess it's the solo queue for me.
Now a little blurb. I wrote most of this crap before the year anniversary, and yeah, a few things have changed, so bear with me. Now, this of course is a general overview of the film's production and the bare bones of the game based on it. Certain maps favour survivors and other maps favour killers. I never play victims on this game, so I don't really know. Well, it's not entirely true, but I cannot speak with authority about them. I can speak with authority about killers, but I just start to get good. But I've just started to get good with Leatherface and Hitchhiker. I'm around level 50, and I don't spend all my spare time playing the game, so I'm not a peak player or anything. But I know some stuff. For advanced players, there's certain character configurations with killers for each map that are optimal. For example, the Cook, Leatherface, and Hitchhiker combo is considered the strongest configuration on the family map. You got a grapple-free character that can twat barricades, run forever, and pressure in the basement. Cook, another high savagery player with locks that really spoil the day of a low proficiency or dumb victim. Since the house itself is a smaller space, his lack of mobility is not much of a handicap whilst the game is contained to this space. Then the Hitchhiker, an agile killer that can crawl between spaces and go between gaps, and more importantly, set traps.
Maybe in the future I will do a video strictly on tactics and lore of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. However, that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this little brief kind of deep dive into the production of the film, the origins of the film, and of course, the asymmetrical horror game based on it. This is Paris down the rabbit hole. Thank you for watching.